shop it, find out what it is. And I'd tell you to shop more than one. Shop 2 or 3 different policies. And we'll talk about some things you can look at when you're shopping those policies. Things we've learned simply from having dealt with clients that have those. In fact, the website that they have is srbllc.com. srbllc.com. And on that website, there's a paper, which I've written, that's on there about 15 or 16 different things you should consider when you buy long-term care insurance, or you at least should shop. The first one, someone said assets. Okay? Well, this, I would tell you, this is probably this is the easiest thing to do. How hard is it to take out a check, write a number, and hand it over? But then the problem comes in is some clients look and they'll say, wait a minute. The average cost is between $4,000 to $6,000 a month. Now, I've got to tell you this story. I had a lady in my office probably about 3 or 4 months ago. We were talking about long-term care costs. I said, have you considered that in your plan? She gave me a state plan. I said, have you considered that? She goes, well, yeah, but how big of a deal is that? I said, well, what do you think it costs? She said, oh, it's probably up to $1,500 now. And I started laughing. I thought she was kidding. You don't come off too well when your client's serious and you're laughing at them. And she was serious. She thought it was that was only about $1,500 a month, and it has grown, or has grown significantly in the last few years. But average cost is between 4 to 6, and that includes, that's not just nursing facility. Remember the cost we talked about? Sometimes that can be prescription medications, unreimbursed prescription medications, or incidentals, those type of things. Average length of stay, 3.25 years to almost 12 years. Now, these statistics that you'll find throughout the slides are not ones that are not specific to Oklahoma. They're published by the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. That's the federal agency that governs Medicaid. And what happens is they publish these statistics from their data. The real difference here between these two time periods, this is an average length of care for someone that's not suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia or some kind of memory-related illness. The longer time period is one that's for those people suffering from some kind of dementia-related or Alzheimer's-related or something like that. And I'm not a physician, but I can only guess from the clients I've seen. Typically, in many cases, they're in pretty good physical shape. It's just the challenges they're facing with either Parkinson's or whatever it is. Now, there's a problem with this. It tends to go away. You know, if you pay for it long enough, there'll be some clients that will start paying with assets, and they get to the point where they're starting to see the bottom, and they're saying, okay, we need some care, we need some other solutions. Assets shrink, what they were. Second option, long-term care insurance. Now again, we don't sell insurance. I will never discourage someone from going shopping. I do have to tell you the story though. A gentleman was in the office, probably about 3 or 4 years ago now, and he said, do you think I should go shop long-term care insurance? I started kind of laughing. Maybe I'm too jovial with what I do, but he was 85. And I said, I didn't discourage him. I said, yeah, you should, but you're probably going to find that it's not going to cover what you need at that point. This is one of those things that I found interesting when I deal with people that are 50s, 60s, maybe even early 70s. We'll bring the subject up. I think one of our jobs as planners is to say, have you thought about this? You need to be thinking about this. And it's never anything they want to talk about. But that's the time they need to talk about it. Now, what we try to get them to do is make a decision. Make a decision right now. Are we going to look at long-term care insurance? If you are, then what you need to do is you need to get with your insurance person and start shopping it. If you're not, then let's start talking about some other planning. But don't leave yourself unprotected. And remember, this is one of those instances where a failure to decide is a decision that we're going to use assets to pay. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? Long-term care insurance. Only about 5% of the population has it. One of the things we run into is when clients come in and they'll ask them, do you have long-term care insurance? They say, yes, I do. The first thing I ask them is, what's your daily benefit? Very few people know. I would say out of that, probably 20% can tell me what their daily benefit is. And what I mean is, how much is that going to pay per day? What we see a lot of is people will come in, and if they have a policy, their daily benefit will be about $70 a day, $75 a day. Well, what does that tell you? Not enough, first of all. It's way short, because remember on our statistics, about $125 a day. But it tells me that they bought that policy a number of years ago. They did not buy an inflation rider with it, and so the cost of care has outpaced what it originally was. Some of the things you're going to look at in long-term care policies, and again, you can get a more extensive list if you go to the website, but that's one of them. If you're looking at long-term care, look at, is there an inflation rider on it? Make sure you're adjusting, make sure you're comparing apples to apples. In other words, one of the reasons we suggest that you get more than one quote is because if you've got two up here, you got one down here, there's something wrong with this one down here. You know, you just may have to dig into the policy to find out what it is, but there's something wrong with it. A lot of times, insurance salesmen are looking to sell 3-year terms or 2-year terms. Okay, now let's think about that a minute. If I'm an insurance salesman, I want you to buy the policy. What do I have to do to get you to buy? What are you looking at? Price. Okay, so I've got to do something to push that price down to get you to buy the policy. If I'm going to give you coverage, one of the ways I can push that price down is get a shorter risk, get less risk, reduce. It's very unusual to see long-term care policies that are for life. If you do see them, they're usually pretty expensive. Okay, so a lot of times agents are selling policies that are 2 years, 3 years. Now, let's go back, think about our length of stay. What if you have a history of Alzheimer's in your family or dementia? Is that going to help you? It'll help you a little while, but it's probably going to run out on you. So that's the kind of things you need to be thinking about. What's your health history when you're buying? What kind of coverage do you need? The elimination period is something they will do. Pretty common to have an elimination period of about 90 days on the front end of a policy. What they're banking on is they're banking on under Medicare. You have 10 skilled nursing days. You know what I'm talking about? I see some of you shaking your head. You know what I'm talking about? Now, the key to the skilled nursing days is you have to need some kind of therapy. Those aren't just automatic days. You have to go to the hospital first. You have to be discharged for therapy to get it. So you could have 100. In fact, the other day we had a client that came in. Mom had almost her full 100 days, but she was not responding to any kind of therapy, so they're not paying. Medicare's not paying. And that's Medicare, not Medicaid. We'll talk about Medicaid in a minute. So those are kind of some of the things you need to look at. Length of coverage, elimination period, inflation riders are a real good one, a big one. And there's about 15 or 16 other ones you can look at on the website. Long-term care insurance can be tax deductible. A lot of people don't know that. And it's an above-the-line deduction. If any of you do any kind of tax work, okay, you know there's a big difference between a deduction that's figured in computing your AGI, means you're going to get it, it's not going to be limited, versus one that's going to be below the line. This is going to be an above-the-line deduction. That's important because if you choose to buy long-term care insurance, it will help fund it. If you can write it off your taxes, at least you're going to get part of the premium paid. So know that that's available. Cost, usually the big problems is either it's too costly or people can't medically qualify for it. That's usually the two issues. Any questions at this point?